In the heart of Texas, where vast ranches stretched beyond the horizon, the Ferrer estate was a place of prestige. It was home to some of the finest service dogs in the country, strong, intelligent, and highly trained for police work, search and rescue, and even Hollywood stardom. Salvador Ferrer, the estate's owner, was a businessman first, a dog breeder second. His reputation was built on producing only the best. Every litter was an investment, every pup a potential fortune. But to Ferrer, there were only two types of dogs: those who had value and those who didn't. That morning, as the golden sun began to rise, a kennel worker rushed into Ferrer's office, his face pale. "Mr. Ferrer, Daisy is giving birth." Ferrer, adjusting his expensive cufflinks, barely looked up from his paperwork. "It better go well," he muttered, standing up. His polished boots echoed as he strode toward the kennels. Daisy, a stunning golden Labrador retriever with champion bloodlines, lay in a whelping box, panting heavily. She had produced some of Ferrer's best dogs, and expectations were high for this litter. One by one, the puppies arrived, each one stronger than the last, until the final one. The moment the last pup was placed on a towel, something was wrong. He was smaller, hesitant, moving his head in erratic, uncertain directions. The vet frowned. "There's a problem," he whispered. Ferrer narrowed his eyes. "What kind of problem?" The vet hesitated, then sighed. "He's blind." Silence fell over the kennel. Daisy licked the small pup protectively, nudging him toward her warmth. But Ferrer only stared, his expression unreadable. Finally, his voice came out cold. "Get rid of it." The vet shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, he's healthy otherwise. He could still live a good life." "He's worthless to me," Ferrer snapped. "A blind dog can't serve. A blind dog can't be sold. I don't waste resources on something with no future." The kennel worker, a young man named Ethan, clenched his fists. He had worked at Ferrer Estate long enough to know that arguing was useless. Orders were orders. That night, under a sky full of stars, Ethan placed the tiny, trembling pup into a crate in the back of his old pickup truck. His heart ached as he drove out to the outskirts of town, where the trees thickened and civilization faded into wilderness. Stopping by the edge of a forest, he carefully lifted the pup out of the crate. The little dog whined, sniffing the air, unaware of where he was. Ethan knelt beside him. "I'm sorry, buddy," he whispered, stroking the pup's soft golden fur. "I wish I could do more for you." The pup gave a tiny wag of his tail, nuzzling Ethan's hand, trusting, innocent. Ethan swallowed hard. He had no choice. Standing up, he took one last look at the helpless creature before turning back toward his truck. As the sound of the engine faded into the night, the little dog was left alone, lost, blind, and abandoned in a world he couldn't even see. The night air was cool, and the forest swayed gently under the Texas moonlight. The little pup, alone in the darkness, whimpered softly. His world was nothing but scents, sounds, and the cold ground beneath him. A coyote howled in the distance. The pup shrank down, his tiny body trembling. He didn't understand why he had been left here. All he knew was that his mother's warmth was gone, replaced by the vast, unfamiliar night. Miles away, in a small, modest house on the edge of town, 12-year-old Lucy Carter was washing dishes with her mother, Sarah. Their home wasn't big, but it was filled with love. Since her father had passed away 2 years ago, it had just been the two of them, making ends meet however they could. Lucy had always loved animals. She spent hours playing with the neighbor's old hound, rescuing birds that had fallen from trees, and helping stray cats find shelter during storms. That's why, when a faint whimper echoed through the night, her ears immediately perked up. She froze, dish in hand. "Mom, did you hear that?" Sarah, lost in thought, barely glanced up. "Hear what, sweetheart?" Lucy tilted her head, listening intently. There was again a soft, broken cry, barely louder than the wind. "A puppy," she breathed. Her mother sighed, setting down a towel. "Lucy, honey, it could be anything. A fox, a raccoon." "No, Mom, it's a dog, and it sounds scared." Before Sarah could stop her, Lucy had already grabbed the old flashlight from the counter and darted out the door. "Lucy, it's late. Get back here," her mother called. But Lucy was already gone, running toward the sound. The forest was darker than she expected, the flashlight barely cutting through the thick shadows. Twigs cracked beneath her sneakers as she carefully made her way forward. "Where are you?" she whispered. Another whimper, closer this time. She turned toward the sound, heart pounding, and then her flashlight landed on a tiny golden bundle curled up beneath a tree. Lucy gasped. "Oh no!" The puppy flinched at the sudden light, but didn't move away. He was too weak, too exhausted. Lucy knelt beside him, her voice soft. "Hey there, little guy. What are you doing out here all alone?" She reached out carefully, letting him sniff her hand. His tiny nose twitched, and then, cautiously, he nuzzled against her palm. That's when she noticed his eyes. They were pale, cloudy, unseeing. Her breath caught in her throat. "You're blind," she murmured. The puppy let out a soft whimper, pressing his small body against her for warmth. Lucy's heart ached. Someone had abandoned him. He hadn't just wandered here. Someone had left him to die. Her fingers curled protectively around his fragile body. "Don't worry, little guy," she whispered. "I'm taking you home." She scooped him up, wrapping him in her jacket, and hurried back through the trees. She had no idea how much her life was about to change. Lucy burst through the front door, clutching the tiny, trembling puppy against her chest. Her mother, Sarah, stood with her arms crossed, already prepared to scold her. But the moment she saw the bundle in Lucy's jacket, her expression softened. "Lucy, what did you do?" Lucy carefully unwrapped the puppy, revealing his small, golden body. His ears twitched at the sound of Sarah's voice, but his cloudy eyes stared into nothingness. "Someone left him in the woods, Mom," Lucy said, her voice shaking with anger. "He's blind, and he was all alone," Sarah sighed, kneeling down to get a better look. The pup was clearly underweight, his ribs faintly visible beneath his soft fur. He nudged at Lucy's hands, as if searching for comfort. Sarah ran a gentle hand over his head. "Oh, sweetheart, a blind dog isn't easy to care for." "I don't care," Lucy said immediately. "I'll take care of him." Her mother hesitated. They weren't rich. Food, vet bills, supplies, it would be another expense. But as she looked at her daughter's determined face and the way the little dog curled up against her, she knew there was no use arguing. Sarah exhaled. "All right, but he's your responsibility." Lucy beamed. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I won't let you down." She looked back at the puppy and smiled. "We're going to be okay, little guy." Lucy named him Buddy. The first few days were rough. Buddy bumped into everything. The table legs, the door frame, even Lucy's feet. At night, he whined in confusion, lost in a world he couldn't see. But Lucy didn't give up. She spent hours researching how to help blind dogs. She learned that sound and scent could replace sight. So, she came up with a plan. First, she tied small jingle bells to her shoelaces. Whenever she walked, Buddy could follow the sound. Then, she used different scents, a dab of vanilla oil on his food bowl, a lemon-scented cloth near the back door, so he could navigate through smell. "Come on, Buddy. You can do it." At first, he hesitated, his small paws unsure. But step by step, he learned to listen instead of look, to trust the jingling of her steps, to follow her voice. And for the first time, Buddy wagged his tail. Lucy grinned. "That's it, boy. You're getting it." Weeks passed, and Buddy grew stronger. He learned how to find his way around the house. He followed Lucy everywhere, his nose always searching for her scent, his ears always tuned to her voice. A week later, Lucy decided Buddy was ready to train in an open field. But the moment they stepped onto the wide, grassy space, he stopped. The wind carried unfamiliar scents. Distant farm dogs barked. The uneven ground felt different beneath his paws. "It's okay, Buddy," Lucy reassured, shaking her shoelaces. He whimpered, lowering his head. "We'll take it slow," she promised. "Just follow my voice." The first day, Buddy refused to move. The second day, he took a few hesitant steps. By the end of the week, he was running beside her again, ears perked up, tail wagging, completely trusting her guidance. Then, one afternoon, something amazing happened. Lucy had been watching an agility competition on TV, dogs racing through tunnels, leaping over hurdles, weaving through poles. An idea sparked in her mind. She turned to Buddy. What if we trained for this? Her mother overheard and laughed softly. Sweetheart, agility is for trained, sighted dogs. Buddy is special, Lucy interrupted. Not broken. Sarah paused. Then she smiled. All right, champion. Let's see what you've got. Lucy and Buddy had just taken their first step towards something no one thought was possible. During an afternoon walk, a stray dog appeared at the edge of the field, growling low. Buddy froze. Lucy's heart pounded. It's okay, Buddy. Stay close. But for the first time, Buddy didn't back away. He took a step forward, ears alert, standing between Lucy and the stray. The other dog hesitated, then turned and ran. Lucy stared at Buddy. You protected me, she whispered, stroking his fur. He wagged his tail. Maybe Buddy couldn't see the world, but he could feel what mattered. The first time Lucy set up an obstacle, Buddy ran straight into it. She had placed a broomstick across 2 chairs to create a low hurdle, just like the one she had seen in dog agility competitions. But the moment she called Buddy forward, he hesitated, then took a step and tripped over the bar. Lucy rushed to him. Oh, Buddy, I'm so sorry. He let out a soft whimper, but wagged his tail, licking her hand as if to say, it's okay. I'll try again. Lucy's heart swelled with pride. We'll figure it out, she promised. That night, she stayed up late, researching how to train blind dogs in agility. Almost everything she found said the same thing. It's impossible. But Lucy had never been one to listen when people said something couldn't be done. The next morning, Lucy changed her approach. Instead of expecting Buddy to see the obstacles, she helped him hear and feel them. She placed soft mats before and after each hurdle so Buddy would know where to jump. She jingled her shoelaces near the obstacle so he could follow the sound. And she started using voice commands. Step up, for jumps. Left, right, for weaving. Go, Buddy, to encourage him forward. For days they tried and failed. The first time, Buddy ran straight through the broomstick. The second time, he hesitated and walked around instead. Lucy kept adjusting, lowering the stick, rewarding small jumps. But Buddy still struggled. Come on, boy, you can do this, she whispered. One evening, exhausted but determined, she tried one more time. Step up. Buddy hesitated. Then he jumped. The broomstick barely moved. Lucy's breath caught. You did it, she whispered, tears in her eyes. You really did it. Lucy gasped. You did it. Buddy landed, wagging his tail like crazy. He didn't need to see the hurdle. He just needed to believe he could do it. And Lucy needed to believe, too. Word spread fast in their small Texas town. People saw Lucy practicing with Buddy in the open field near her house. They whispered about the crazy girl training a blind dog for something he'd never be able to do. One afternoon at the grocery store, an older man scoffed as Lucy and her mother passed by. Waste of time, he muttered. A blind dog is useless. Lucy clenched her fists. Buddy isn't useless, she said, her voice firm. You'll see. The man chuckled. That's the problem. He won't. Lucy turned away, furious, but more determined than ever. We'll prove them all wrong, she thought. And she had just found the perfect way to do it. A local dog agility competition was happening in 2 months. Anyone could enter, even a blind dog. Lucy signed him up that night. But he wasn't just going to compete. He was going to win. Lucy had no idea that someone else had heard about Buddy's training. Someone powerful. Someone who didn't like being proven wrong. At the Ferrer estate, Salvador Ferrer sat in his leather office chair, swirling a glass of whiskey as his assistant read the latest town gossip. The Carter girl signed up for the competition, sir. Ferrer raised an eyebrow. With what dog? The assistant hesitated. It's the blind pup from Daisy's litter. Silence. Ferrer's jaw clenched. That pup, his pup, was supposed to be dead. Instead, it was alive, training, and about to step onto a stage where his name meant everything. And, he asked coldly. The assistant swallowed. People are talking. They say he's doing things no blind dog should be able to do. Some folks think he might actually win. Ferrer slammed his glass onto the desk. A blind dog beating his professionally bred champions? A nobody girl embarrassing his legacy? Unacceptable. But then a thought crept into his mind. A slow, calculating grin spread across his face. "Give me the competition organizer," he ordered, "and call my lawyer. I have a claim to make." Lucy was brushing Buddy's golden fur in their backyard when she heard her mother's voice rise inside the house. "You can't be serious." Lucy hurried in. Her mother was standing stiffly, clutching the phone, her face pale with anger. She turned to Lucy, her eyes filled with something close to panic. "It's Farrer," Sarah whispered. "He says Buddy belongs to him." Lucy felt the ground shift beneath her. "What?" Her mother put the phone on speaker. Farrer's smooth, arrogant voice filled the room. "That dog was born on my estate. His mother is mine, which makes him mine. I'll be picking him up tomorrow." Lucy's heart pounded. "You abandoned him. You left him to die." Farrer chuckled. "And you picked up the trash. That doesn't make it yours." Lucy's fists clenched. "Buddy isn't trash." "Doesn't matter," Farrer said. "Legally, he's mine. But I'm a reasonable man, Lucy. I'll make you a deal." Lucy swallowed hard. "What deal?" "Sell him to me. I'll pay you $5,000. The room fell silent. Sarah covered her mouth in shock. $5,000 was more than they had in their savings account. It could fix the leaking roof, pay off bills, make life easier. But Lucy didn't hesitate. "No." Farrer's voice turned sharp. "Think carefully, girl. I have buyers waiting. Big buyers. Buddy is unique. He's valuable, but only if he belongs to me." Lucy shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. "He belongs to me." Farrer sighed. "Then I guess I'll see you in court." The line went dead. Lucy stood frozen, her hands trembling. Buddy, sensing her distress, nuzzled against her leg, his tail wagging softly. She sank to her knees, wrapping her arms around him. "I won't let them take you." But deep down, fear crept in, because she knew Farrer wasn't bluffing, and he had the money to take Buddy away. Lucy barely slept that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Farrer's words in her head. The night before the competition, Lucy sat outside, knees pulled to her chest. Doubt crept in. "What if we fail, Buddy?" she whispered. She felt his nose press against her arm, then his warm body leaning in her side. "You believe in me, don't you?" she whispered. Buddy wagged his tail. Lucy exhaled. "Then that's all I need. Legally, he's mine. I'll see you in court." She turned over and buried her face in her pillow. How could this be happening? She had saved Buddy. She had raised him, trained him, loved him. And now, just because Farrer wanted to make money, he could take him away? No, she wouldn't let it happen. The next morning, Lucy and her mother drove to the only person they knew who could help, Mr. Thompson, the town's best lawyer. His office smelled like coffee and old books, and he looked at them over his glasses as they explained everything. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, sighing. Salvador Farrer is a powerful man. He's got money, connections, and influence. Lucy gritted her teeth. "I don't care." Thompson studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Good, because you're going to need that attitude." He flipped through a legal book, tapping his pen against the desk. "Farrer's argument is weak. Yes, Buddy was born on his estate, but by abandoning him, he gave up his claim. If we can prove that, you have a chance." Lucy sat up straighter. "How do we prove it?" Thompson smiled. "We need a witness." Lucy's heart leapt. She knew exactly who to find. Ethan stood on the porch of his small rental house, rubbing the back of his neck as Lucy explained everything. When she finished, he let out a low whistle. "Mon, I knew Farrer was a jerk, but this..." Lucy gripped her hands together. "Will you testify? Will you tell the judge that Farrer ordered you to leave Buddy in the woods?" Ethan hesitated. Lucy's chest tightened. "Please, you're the only one who can prove Buddy was abandoned." Finally, Ethan sighed. "I'll do it." Lucy nearly threw her arms around him. "Thank you." Ethan smirked. "That pup deserves better. Let's make sure he stays where he belongs." A week later, Lucy sat in a stiff wooden chair, her hands sweating as the judge entered the small-town courtroom. On the other side of the room, Salvador Farrer sat with his expensive lawyer, smirking like he had already won. Lucy clenched her fists. Not today. The case began. Farrer's lawyer argued that Buddy was Farrer's property, that Lucy had stolen him, and that they had generously offered to buy him back. Then it was Lucy's turn. She stood up, heart pounding. I didn't steal Buddy. He was abandoned. Left to die. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof? Lucy turned toward the witness stand. Yes. 𝐦𝐤𝐤. Ethan stepped forward. He cleared his throat, then looked Farrer straight in the eye. Mr. Farrer ordered me to dump that pup in the woods. I drove him out there myself. He didn't care if the dog lived or died. Gasps filled the courtroom. Farrer's smirk vanished. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Farrer, is this true? Farrer's lawyer started speaking, but Farrer waved a hand, his expression darkening. I don't recall. The judge frowned. That's convenient. Then he turned to Lucy. Miss Carter, you've proven that Mr. Farrer abandoned the dog. That means he forfeited ownership. Effective immediately, Buddy is legally yours. Lucy's breath caught. Wait, we won. The judge smiled. You won. Tears burned in Lucy's eyes. She turned to Buddy, who was sitting patiently by her feet, completely unaware that his fate had just been decided. Lucy knelt down and hugged him tight. Buddy licked her cheek, his tail thumping against the ground. We did it, Buddy, she whispered. You're mine. Forever. That night, as they lay curled up on the porch, Lucy ran her fingers through his fur. You know, I thought I was helping you, she murmured. But I think you're helping me too. As the courtroom emptied, Farrer stormed past her, his face red with fury. This isn't over, he muttered. Lucy looked up at him, fire in her eyes. Yes, it is. Farrer scoffed and walked away. She didn't watch him go. She didn't care. She had Buddy. That was all that mattered. The day of the competition arrived with a crisp morning breeze. Lucy stood at the entrance of the event grounds, her heart pounding as she took in the massive agility course. It was nothing like their homemade backyard setup. The crowds, the announcers, the bright stadium lights. Everything felt overwhelming. She looked down at Buddy, who sat calmly at her feet, his ears twitching as he listened to the unfamiliar sound around him. Lucy took a deep breath. We've got this, Buddy. He wagged his tail. As Lucy walked Buddy toward the warm-up area, she heard whispers. Is that the blind dog? No way he can do this. Poor girl. She's about to embarrass herself. Lucy clenched her fists. She had heard it all before. She didn't care. Then, she spotted someone in the VIP section. Salvador Ferrer. Dressed in his usual expensive suit, he sat with his arms crossed, watching the event with an unreadable expression. Lucy's stomach twisted. Is he here just to watch me fail? She shook the thought away. It didn't matter. Buddy was ready, and they were going to prove everyone wrong. The agility course was brutal. Tunnels, hurdles, weave poles, ramps. Each obstacle tested speed, precision, and control. One by one, elite dogs from top trainers flew through the course. Lucy watched, gripping Buddy's leash, feeling the pressure build. Then, her name was called. She stepped forward. The announcer's voice crackled through the speakers. Next up, Lucy Carter and Buddy, the blind Labrador. A mix of applause and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lucy knelt beside Buddy. All right, champion. Just like we practiced. She jingled her shoelaces, Buddy's cue that it was time. He perked up, ears forward. Ready. Lucy straightened. Let's do this. The timer started. Lucy took off running, and Buddy followed, his head tilting to track the sound of her steps. First jump, cleared. Tunnels, perfect execution. Weave poles, flawless. The crowd gasped. They had expected a disaster. Instead, they were watching something incredible. A blind dog moving with precision, responding to every cue, trusting his handler completely. Lucy's voice rang out. Step up. Buddy leaped over a high hurdle without hesitation. The audience erupted into cheers. Lucy sprinted toward the last part of the course, the A-frame. A steep ramp, almost vertical, leading to a narrow walkway before descending on the other side. It was Buddy's toughest challenge. Lucy reached the base of the ramp. Up, Buddy. You can do it. Buddy paused. The height, the unfamiliar feel beneath his paws. It was different from anything they had practiced. Lucy's heart pounded. If he refused, they would lose. She crouched low, jingling her laces. Trust me, Buddy. I'm right here. The crowd fell silent. Then Buddy took a step, then another. With the crowd holding their breath, Buddy reached the top, tail wagging. Lucy ran to the other side. Down! Buddy raced down the ramp, crossing the finish line. The stadium exploded with cheers. They had done it. Lucy hugged Buddy, laughing through tears. The announcer's voice boomed. Lucy Carter and Buddy, new course record. The crowd went wild. People who had doubted them were now on their feet, cheering. In the VIP section, Federer stared in stunned silence. His worthless blind pup had just outperformed every champion on that field. For the first time in his life, Salvador Federer had nothing to say. As Lucy stood on the podium with Buddy beside her, a reporter rushed up. "Lucy, what's next for you and Buddy?" Lucy smiled, scratching Buddy behind the ears. "Anything we want."